Hey everyone, this is Mugen FK7 and big news, my CVT is experiencing slippage. So what does this all mean? For those of you guys who don't know, basically this is not a very good thing. So when the CVT is slipping, it just means it's not able to handle the power in a very smooth way, and this usually starts showing signs of transmission failure. Now that's a more extreme case, but I've done a decent amount of research the last couple of weeks. I've also heard over time, obviously the transmission is a weak point for our cars. Obviously it can't handle as much torque. Similar HP amounts to the manual transmissions, but not as much usually. Maybe like a 10%, like a 10% deficit or something. But I noticed this CVT slippage just a couple of days ago. So basically when I was driving on my revision 8 with Derek Robinson, again, my mods are full bolt-ons, E85, RV6, big turbo, the ball bearing one specifically, so that one has even more power than just the regular journal bearing. But I started knowing some slippage when I was flooring the car from 20 miles an hour to 90 miles an hour for our revision tune. Around 75 miles an hour, the car's like RPM started going up and down, so it made like a sound. So until like it finally stabilized. I can probably post a clip right now. Okay. And edit it in, but basically you can just hear it. You can hear it in that clip. It just kind of bounces off the rev limiter, kind of. So that's when you kind of see. That's like a good indication that the CVT transmission is sleeping. Another like indication of it being slow, or at least like not working very well, is obviously if it starts rattling a lot. You hear like a whirring noise, like every time you like quote unquote shift gears or just drive it. Luckily I haven't had that problem yet. This is like this is more when it comes to like transmission problems, this is more on the minor side. Now I've already did my transmission flush at 19,000 miles, which is earlier than the usual Honda Civic, but keep in mind, because I'm putting so much power, it's recommended I do it early, so that's why I did it at 19,000. But I did it with the OEM Honda Civic fluid, which just sucks. So a lot of people have been telling me to go with AMS soil, so AM soil, whatever. Apparently they make really good CVT transmission fluid for the 10th gen Honda Civics, but also for like Nissan CVTs and whatever. So that's what Derek Robinson also recommended doing. So he's my tuner, along with a lot of other people online. They recommend to go with AMS CVT transmission fluid because the OEM one sucks. And not only that, but he also recommended me getting a Civic CVT cooler kit. So I looked online and it looks like ETL is the most it's like the most popular one at the moment. Obviously PRL made one a couple years ago, but they discontinued it. So I'm gonna go with ETL. Basically the CVT cooler kit just keeps your temperatures low. Over the last 2 years that I've driven this car, I've noticed that extensively over like an hour drive when I floor it, not necessarily floor it, but just keep it, even just like keeping it at cruising speeds on freeways for just an hour, like maybe 80 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour at night. That's usually when I drive on the freeways. Just cruising speeds, keep in mind, it easily hits over 200, 210, 220 degrees of Fahrenheit, which is really hot. So I heard 230 was like when it starts getting suspicious. Obviously I've heard on Civic X people just drive it like maybe up to 250 sometimes in like really hot weather, but it's not good for our cars, especially if you're putting a lot of strain on it with a lot of power. So luckily, from the research and from the knowledge that I know, it doesn't sound like my transmission is in a really bad spot. This is the first time it's ever slipped, and keep in mind this was after me driving it for 2 years like an idiot, or at least more like a year of being an idiot, and the other year is me being more conservative. When I first got the car, I drove very conservatively for like the first 5 months. And then after I started tuning it, initially I didn't know too much about cars, so of course I want to test it out the 060. I want to test I was flooring it every time, trying to race it against my friends all the time, which is not good, especially on stock turbo. But luckily I wasn't pushing too much power around then. But eventually when I moved on to the 21 psi and the Fearable 1.5R tune, which puts more strain on the transmission, I was flooring a decent amount, especially on stock turbo, which did put a strain on the CVT, but not super much compared to like say if you went on ethanol. But still, I was putting a strain on the CVT transmission. So eventually when I got to E85, I actually drove more conservatively because by that time I already understood the stakes of my transmission and what not to do. Anyway, this is just an update. Again, I'm gonna go switch it out with AMS CVT fluid soon and get that CVT cooler installed. So there's going to be a holdup on the revisions and like the final update of the big turbo. Right now, as I would say it, my car is probably pushing around 290 wheel and 270 torque. Again, the torque is pretty nice. You can feel it. It's good, but it's on the later, they put it at the later RPM, so it's not as big of a strain on the CVT. But because my CVT is already starting to show signs of slippage, it may be time to just start upgrading the CVT components. But yeah, that's it. I'll see you guys in the next video.